How to stop being manipulated by women. A man does not become manipulated in one dramatic moment. He becomes manipulated slowly, through every small compromise he makes against his own dignity. It begins when he feels something is wrong, but tells himself to stay quiet because he does not want to lose her. Most men think manipulation starts when a woman lies, cheats, disrespects them, or uses them financially. But the deeper truth is that manipulation begins when a man stops trusting what he sees. It begins when his eyes notice the red flag. His gut feels the danger, but his loneliness negotiates with reality. And this is why some men repeat the same relationship over and over again with different women. Different face, same disrespect, different body, same emotional chaos. Different name, same outcome. At some point, a man has to stop asking, why do women keep doing this to me, and start asking, what part of me keeps allowing this pattern to enter my life? Asking become på det start by on to fit of the compassionate finals that I'm going to pay in. This is not about hating women. This is not about blaming all women. This is not about becoming cold, bitter, cruel, or emotionally dead. This is about becoming awake. Because when a man is asleep to his own wounds, anyone with enough beauty, charm, attention, or sexual energy can lead him away from himself. The painful truth is that most women who manipulate you do not need to hide who they are forever. They usually show you pieces of themselves very early. They show you through how they treat people they no longer need. They show you through how they speak about their past. They show you through how they respond when you say no. They show you through whether accountability makes them reflect or attack. But a desperate man does not study behavior. He studies potential. He says she could be different. He says she only acts like this because she has been hurt. He says maybe if I love her hard enough, she will change. And before he realizes it, he has stopped dating the woman in front of him and started dating the fantasy in his head. That fantasy is where manipulation survives. A woman does not have to control a man who is already controlled by his own imagination. If he is in love with her potential, she can keep giving him crumbs while he keeps feeding himself dreams. He will ignore what she does because he is addicted to what he hopes she becomes. The first step to stop being manipulated is to accept that attraction is not evidence of character. Beauty is not loyalty. Chemistry is not compatibility. Sexual desire is not emotional safety. A beautiful woman can still be dishonest. A seductive woman can still be selfish. A charming woman can still destroy your peace if you hand her power before she has earned trust. Many men become weak around beauty because they treat physical attraction like a rare opportunity. They see a woman they desire and immediately their standards collapse. They stop observing. They start performing. They stop asking whether she is good for their life and start asking whether they are good enough for her attention. That is when the power dynamic shifts. The moment a man becomes overly impressed by beauty, he silently tells a woman, your appearance is enough to make me tolerate things I would normally reject. And if she's emotionally immature, selfish, or manipulative, she will notice. She may not say it out loud, but she will feel where his weakness is. A woman who respects herself and respects men will not exploit that weakness, but a manipulative woman will test it. She will see how far she can go. She will cancel plans and watch your reaction. She will flirt in front of you and watch your reaction. She will disrespect you in a small way and watch your reaction. She is not only listening to what you say, she is studying what you tolerate. This is why words are not boundaries. A boundary is not please don't do that again repeated 100 times while you stay in the same place. A boundary is a standard with consequences. It is calm. It is clear. It is not loud. It does not beg. It does not threaten. It simply says, this is what I accept. This is what I do not accept. And if this continues, I remove myself. Many men confuse boundaries with arguments. They think setting a boundary means yelling, dominating, insulting, or trying to force obedience. That is not strength. That is insecurity wearing armor. Real boundaries do not require rage. Real boundaries come from self-respect so deep that you do not need to convince someone to value you. The man who cannot lead, and the woman who knows you cannot leave will eventually stop respecting your words. Because every time you say, I'm done, but return the next day, you teach her that your pain has no consequence. Every time you say, I won't tolerate this, but tolerate it again, you train her to hear your boundaries as emotional noise. This is where manipulation becomes a cycle. She crosses a line, you feel hurt, you complain, she cries, seduces, blames, apologizes, or distracts. You forgive without change. Then things go back to normal until the next violation. And each cycle teaches both of you something. It teaches her that your standards are flexible, and it teaches you to distrust yourself. A man must understand this clearly. Forgiveness without boundaries becomes permission. Patience without standards becomes self-betrayal. Love without self-respect becomes addiction. And loyalty to someone who repeatedly disrespects you is not noble. It is abandonment of yourself. One of the biggest reasons men stay in manipulative relationships is because they are addicted to proving their worth. They do not simply want love. They want to win love from someone difficult. They want to be chosen by someone who withholds affection. They want to finally feel valuable because a woman who once made them feel small now makes them feel special. This pattern often begins long before dating. It can begin in childhood when love felt inconsistent, conditional, cold, or unpredictable. A boy who had to earn affection may become a man who mistakes emotional struggle for intimacy. If he was ignored, criticized, abandoned, or made to feel like his needs were too much, he may grow up chasing women who recreate that same wound. This is why some men feel bored around peaceful women. A healthy woman may feel unfamiliar because she does not trigger the old wound. She communicates clearly, respects boundaries, shows care, and does not make love feel like a battlefield. But to a man addicted to emotional chaos, peace can feel like a lack of chemistry because his nervous system has confused anxiety with passion. So he chooses the woman who keeps him guessing. He chooses the woman who gives him affection one day and distance the next. He chooses the woman who makes him feel like he is constantly auditioning for basic respect. And because the emotional rhythm feels familiar, he calls it love when in reality it is a childhood wound wearing perfume. To stop being manipulated, a man has to heal his attraction to disrespect. That means he must stop romanticizing the woman who makes him suffer. He must stop confusing intensity with depth. He must stop treating emotional instability as proof that the connection is powerful. Sometimes the connection feels powerful because it is attached to pain, not because it is attached to destiny. A manipulative woman often does not need to invent your weakness. She only needs to discover it. If your weakness is beauty, she will use beauty. If your weakness is sex, she will use sex. If your weakness is loneliness, she will use attention. If your weakness is guilt, she will make herself the victim. If your weakness is abandonment, she will threaten to leave every time you stand up for yourself. And this is why self-knowledge is protection. A man who does not know his weakness will keep calling his weakness love. He will say, I just care too much. But underneath that sentence may be fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over, fear of losing access to her body, fear that no other woman will want him, fear that if this relationship fails, it proves he is unlovable. Manipulation feeds on fear. The less afraid you are to lose someone, the harder you are to control. This does not mean you should become careless. It means you should become grounded. You can love a woman deeply and still be willing to walk away if love becomes humiliation. You can care about a relationship and still refuse to sacrifice your self-respect to keep it alive. A man becomes dangerous to manipulation when he stops needing the relationship to validate him. When his identity is bigger than his romantic life, he cannot be easily controlled by withdrawal, silence, seduction, guilt, or drama. His purpose anchors him. His discipline protects him. His friendships, health, work, faith and self-respect give him a life outside the woman he desires. This is why a man must build himself before he gives himself. If your entire life becomes centered around one woman, she becomes your emotional government. Her mood becomes your weather. Her approval becomes your oxygen. Her attention becomes your payment. And once one person controls your emotional survival, you are no longer in love. You are dependent. Dependency makes men negotiate with disrespect. A dependent man asks, how do I make her stop treating me this way? A self-respecting man asks, why am I still available to someone who keeps treating me this way? That question changes everything because it takes the focus away from controlling her and puts it back on mastering yourself. You cannot control whether a woman lies. You cannot control whether she cheats. You cannot control whether she values loyalty. You cannot control whether she has healed her past. You cannot control whether she has integrity. But you can control access. You can control how long you stay. You can control whether disrespect receives your presence, your money, your protection, your attention, and your forgiveness. This is where many men fail. They reward the behavior they claim to hate. She disrespects him and he buys gifts to fix the tension. She cheats and he begs her not to leave. She humiliates him and he apologizes just to restore peace. She withholds affection and he becomes more generous, more available, more desperate, and more obedient. But what does that teach her? It teaches her that bad behavior brings more benefits. It teaches her that his fear is stronger than his standards. It teaches her that he can be punished, replaced, ignored, or disrespected, and he will still keep investing. Once that lesson is learned, respect becomes very difficult to rebuild. A man must never reward disrespect. This does not mean he should become cruel. It means he must become consistent. If a woman crosses a serious boundary, the reward cannot be more access to him. The reward cannot be money, attention, apologies, or emotional pursuit. The response must be distance, evaluation, and consequence. There are 3 levels of boundaries every man needs. The first level is communication. This is where you calmly name the issue. You say, that behavior does not work for me. You do not insult her. You do not lecture for 3 hours. You simply make the standard clear. The second level is observation. After you communicate, you watch what happens. Does she take accountability or does she attack your feelings? Does she adjust her behavior or does she become better at hiding it? Does she respect the boundary or does she test whether you meant it? This stage reveals more than any conversation ever could. The third level is removal. If the behavior continues, you stop explaining and start acting. You reduce access, you step back, you leave the relationship if necessary, not because you hate her, but because you refuse to abandon yourself. A boundary without removal is only a request. A boundary with removal becomes self-respect. A woman who values you may not be perfect, but she will care when she hurts you. She will not enjoy your confusion. She will not weaponize your vulnerability. She will not keep repeating behavior that she knows damages the relationship. She may need communication, but she will not need endless begging to understand basic respect. A manipulative woman, however, will often make your boundary the problem. She will say you are insecure. She will say you are controlling. She will say you are overreacting. She will bring up your past mistakes to avoid discussing her present behavior. She will cry, rage, disappear, or seduce you, depending on which strategy has worked before. This is why a man must judge by patterns, not performances. Anyone can apologize for one night. Anyone can cry when consequences arrive. Anyone can make promises after being caught. The question is not whether she can perform remorse. The question is whether her behavior changes when there is no immediate threat of losing you. Do not be moved only by emotion. Be moved by evidence. A woman who truly respects the relationship becomes more honest, more accountable, and more consistent over time. A woman who only fears consequences becomes temporarily sweet, then slowly returns to the same behavior once she feels secure again. Another sign you're being manipulated is that you feel guilty for having normal standards. You feel guilty for wanting honesty, guilty for wanting respect, guilty for wanting peace, guilty for asking where the relationship is going, guilty for noticing disrespect, guilty for walking away from someone who keeps hurting you. Manipulation often works by turning your conscience against you. A selfish person will make you feel cruel for protecting yourself. They will make your boundaries sound like betrayal. They will frame your self-respect as punishment. They will say, after everything I've been through, how could you leave? But your compassion must never become a prison. A man can understand a woman's trauma without becoming a sacrifice to it. Her pain may explain some behavior, but it does not excuse repeated harm. You can have empathy and still have standards. You can care about what happened to her and still refuse to be mistreated by what happened to her. This is especially important for men with a rescuer complex. Some men do not date women. They adopt emotional projects. They see chaos and call it depth. They see instability and call it passion. They see disrespect and call it a cry for help. They believe that if they rescue her, she will finally love them with loyalty and gratitude. But love built on rescue often turns into resentment. The rescuer eventually feels drained, unseen, and used. The rescued person may begin to resent being treated like a project, and the relationship becomes a hidden transaction. I saved you, so now you owe me love. That is not healthy. That is emotional bargaining. A strong man does not need to rescue a woman to feel valuable. He can support a woman who is already responsible for herself. He can love a woman without becoming her therapist, father, wallet, emotional punching bag, or savior. He understands that partnership requires two adults, not one adult, and one endless crisis. Financial manipulation is another area where men must be awake. There is nothing wrong with generosity. There is nothing wrong with providing in a relationship where there is love, respect, loyalty, and shared values. But provision without discernment becomes exploitation. Money should never become the price you pay to keep someone who does not respect you. A man must watch how a woman responds to the word no. That one word reveals character. If she respects you only when you agree, she does not respect you. If affection disappears whenever you set financial limits, then affection may have been attached to access, not love. If she becomes cold, insulting, or threatening when you stop funding her lifestyle, you are not loved. You are useful. Do not confuse being needed with being valued. A person can need your money and still not respect your soul. A person can need your help and still betray you. A person can need your stability and still resent your boundaries. Value is shown through respect, consideration, loyalty, and reciprocity, not just dependence. Sexual manipulation also controls many men. Some men will tolerate emotional disrespect because the sexual connection is strong. They will ignore lies because intimacy feels addictive. They will forgive humiliation because passion pulls them back. But when sex becomes the leash around your self-respect, you are no longer choosing freely. A disciplined man does not let desire make decisions for him. He can be attracted without becoming blind. He can enjoy intimacy without becoming enslaved. He can desire a woman and still ask whether her presence improves his life. That is maturity. That is power. That is the difference between a man governed by impulse and a man governed by values. A man who heals becomes harder to manipulate because he stops confusing access with achievement. He no longer thinks, I want because she wants me. He thinks, let me observe whether this woman is healthy for me. That shift is everything. It takes him from being chosen to choosing, from being impressed to being discerning, from chasing validation to evaluating alignment. Discernment is not bitterness. Bitterness says all women are the same. Discernment says I will pay attention before I invest. Bitterness closes the heart. Discernment opens the eyes. Bitterness punishes innocent people for what guilty people did. Discernment protects your future from repeating your past. A man must learn the difference between a mistake and a pattern. A mistake is followed by accountability, repair, and changed behavior. A pattern is followed by excuses, repetition, and blame shifting. Do not end a good relationship because of one human mistake, but do not stay in a destructive relationship because every pattern comes with an apology. Watch how she handles accountability. A mature woman may feel comfortable, but she will listen. She may explain herself, but she will not erase your feelings. She may disagree, but she will not destroy the conversation. An immature or manipulative woman turns accountability into a courtroom where you suddenly become the criminal for noticing her behavior. Watch how she treats people she has power over. Watch how she talks to waiters, children, service workers, ex-partners, family members, and people who cannot benefit her. Character is not only revealed in romance, it is revealed in small moments where there is no reward for kindness. Watch how she talks about every ex. If every man in her past was toxic, abusive, jealous, insecure, broke, crazy, narcissistic, or useless, be careful. Maybe she has truly been through painful experiences. But if she has no accountability, no reflection, and no lesson except they were all the problem, you may be auditioning for the next villain role in her story. Watch whether she respects your purpose. A woman who loves you will not compete with your growth. She may want time and affection, but she will not sabotage your discipline. She will not punish you for working, training, studying, building, or becoming stronger. A manipulative woman often wants the benefits of your ambition while resenting the boundaries required to achieve it. Watch whether peace increases or decreases after she enters your life. A relationship will have challenges, but it should not make you feel constantly unstable. If your sleep worsens after your focus collapses, your friendships disappear, your work suffers, your confidence shrinks, and your nervous system is always on alert. Your body may be telling you what your fantasy refuses to admit. A man must also stop being afraid of being called insecure. This word is often used to silence men who notice disrespect. Yes, insecurity exists. Yes, some men are controlling because they are wounded, but not every boundary is insecurity. Not every concern is jealousy. Not every standard is oppression. Sometimes your discomfort is wisdom. If a woman repeatedly behaves in ways that damage trust, you are not insecure for responding to the damage. Trust is not an entitlement. Trust is built through consistent behavior. A person who wants trust while acting untrustworthy is asking for privilege without responsibility. The same applies to being called controlling. Control says, you are not allowed to do this because I own you. A boundary says, you are free to do what you want and I am free to decide whether that works for me. Control tries to manage another person's choices. Boundaries manage your own access and participation. That distinction is crucial. You do not need to police a woman. You do not need to monitor her phone, interrogate her, follow her, or obsess over every move. If trust has collapsed so deeply that you feel the need to become a detective, the relationship is already sick. A self-respecting man does not build a prison around a woman. He builds a standard around himself. Your power is not in forcing someone to behave you. Your power is in choosing who gets access to your life. If she wants to act single, let her be single. If she wants attention from other men more than she wants respect in the relationship, let her have the attention and lose the relationship. If she wants to test every boundary, let the test reveal that you are not available for chaos. One of the hardest truths for men to accept is that love is not enough. You can love someone and still be wrong for each other. You can love someone and still be disrespected by them. You can love someone and still need to leave. Love tells you what you feel. Character tells you what you are dealing with. Standards tell you what you must do. A man must become loyal to reality, not to fantasy, not to potential, not to promises, not to beauty, not to the version of her that appears after you threaten to leave. Reality is what happens repeatedly. Reality is how she behaves when she is comfortable. Reality is what she does when she thinks there will be no consequence. This is why the early dating stage is not for attachment. It is for observation. Do not rush to give boyfriend benefits to someone you barely know. Do not attach your future to someone whose character has not been tested. Do not confuse a few intense conversations, sexual chemistry, and shared trauma stories with proven loyalty. In the beginning, people often show their best performance. Time reveals their pattern. Pressure reveals their maturity. Conflict reveals their respect. Disappointment reveals their entitlement. Boundaries reveal their character. That is why you should move slowly enough to see clearly. A man who moves too fast often bonds before he evaluates. Once he is bonded, he starts defending what he should be questioning. He ignores the red flags because leaving now would hurt. But the pain of leaving early is nothing compared to the pain of staying too long with someone who keeps lowering your self-worth. Do not be afraid to disappoint a woman who benefits from your lack of boundaries. Some people call you selfish when you stop being useful to their selfishness. Some people call you cold when you stop being emotionally available for their chaos. Some people say you change when you finally return to yourself. Let them say it. Your job is not to be understood by people who profited from your confusion. Your job is to become whole. Your job is to become honest. Your job is to become the kind of man who can love deeply without losing himself completely. And understand this, walking away is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is mercy. It is mercy for you because you stop bleeding in a place that keeps cutting you. It is mercy for her because you stop enabling behavior she refuses to confront. It is mercy for the future because you refuse to build a life on resentment. The strongest men are not the men who never get hurt. They are the men who learn. They do not turn every wound into hatred. They turn wounds into wisdom. They become more selective, not more bitter. They become more grounded, not more cruel. They become more loving, but less available to disrespect. So how do you stop being manipulated by women? You stop worshiping beauty. You stop ignoring red flags. You stop rewarding disrespect. You stop begging for basic decency. You stop confusing chaos with chemistry. You stop trying to rescue people who refuse responsibility. You stop calling fear love. You build a life that no woman can easily destabilize. You develop purpose, discipline, emotional control, financial wisdom, physical confidence, spiritual grounding, and strong friendships. You become a man with options, not because you chase women, but because you build value. And when a man has value, self-respect, and emotional discipline, manipulation has less room to breathe. A healthy woman does not need you weak. She does not need you desperate. She does not need you blind, needy, or afraid to leave. A healthy woman can stand beside a strong man because she is not trying to control him. She wants love, not domination. She wants partnership, not exploitation. She wants respect going both ways. So the goal is not to become anti-woman. The goal is to become anti-manipulation. The goal is not to punish women for your past. The goal is to stop inviting the same pattern into your future. The goal is to become so clear, grounded, and self-respecting that the wrong woman cannot stay long and the right woman can finally recognize you. Because the truth is simple. You do not stop being manipulated by becoming harder to love. You stop being manipulated by becoming harder to disrespect. You stop being manipulated when your love no longer requires self-abandonment. You stop being manipulated when you finally understand that losing someone who harms your dignity is not a loss. Sometimes it is the first real victory of your life.